How are y'all? I hope you're having a great day. We are going to continue reading What Two Moons by Sharon Creech, and we are to chapter 30. This chapter is called Breaking In. It's a pretty interesting chapter. And we just, remember, we were just talking about, she went to, that's it. Sal and Phoebe went to the police station and they told them about, they think that Phoebe's mom's been murdered and all that. And Phoebe's dad had to come get them. And then he said that he had talked to Miss Cadaver and she said that her mom was fine and all that. And Phoebe got really upset and then her dad started crying. And that's how the chapter ended. So that's where we are. That's what we found out so far. So let's see what this one's about breaking in. Okay. Well, golly, Gramps said, what a lot of birds of sadness winging, dinging their way all around Peebe's family. Gramps said, you liked Peebe, didn't you, Salamanca? I did like Peebe, in spite of all her wild tales and her cholesterol madness and all her annoying comments. There was something about Phoebe that was like a magnet. I was drawn to her. I was pretty sure that underneath that odd behavior of hers, there was someone who was frightened. And in a strange way, she was kind of like another version of me. She acted out the way I sometimes felt. I do not think that Phoebe actually planned to break into Miss Cadaver's house, but as Phoebe was going to bed, she saw Miss Cadaver in her nurse's uniform get into her car and leave. Phoebe waited until her father was asleep and then she phoned me. You've got to come over, she said. It's urgent. But Phoebe, it's late and it's dark. It's urgent, Sal. Phoebe was waiting in front of Miss Cadaver's house and there were no lights on at Miss Cadaver's. Phoebe said, come on. And she started up the walk. I admit that I was reluctant. I just want to take just a quick look, she said. And she crept up onto the porch and stood by the door and she listened. She tapped twice and then she turned the doorknob. The door was unlocked. I don't think that Phoebe actually intended to go inside, but she did, and I followed her. We stood in the dark hallway, and in the room to the right, there was a shaft of light from the street lamp that came through the window. We went in that room, and we both nearly leaped through the window when someone said, Sal? I started backing towards the door. It's a ghost, Phoebe said. Come here, the voice said. As my eyes adjusted to the dim light, I could see someone was huddled in a chair in the far corner. When I saw the cane, I was relieved. Miss Partridge, come over here, she said. Who's that with you? Is that Phoebe? Phoebe said, yes. Her voice was high and quivery. Well, I was just sitting here reading, Miss Partridge said. Isn't it awfully dark in here? I said, bumping into a table. Miss Partridge laughed her wicked laugh. It's always dark in here. I don't need lights, but you can turn some on if you want to. Now remember, Miss Partridge is Miss Cadaver's mother, and she is blind. Remember, she guessed the girls' ages without seeing them or looking at them, of course, because she's blind. So she is, that's why it's always dark to her. So she was trying to be funny. As I stumbled around looking for a lamp, Phoebe stood frozen near the doorway. There, I said, that's much better. Miss Partridge was sitting in a big, overstuffed chair. She was wearing a purple bathrobe and pink slippers with floppy bunny ears on the toes. And on her lap, her fingers were resting on a page. Is it Braille? I asked, waving at Phoebe to come into the room. I was afraid she was going to leave me and run out and leave me all by myself. Miss Partridge handed me the book and I slid my fingers over the raised bumps. How did you know it was us? I asked. Oh, I just knew, she said. Your shoes make a particular sound and you have a particular smell. "What's the name of this book and what's it about?" I asked. Miss Partridge said, "Murder at Midnight. It's a mystery." Phoebe said, "Erp!" as she looked around the room. Each time I went into that house, I noticed some new things. It was a scary place. The walls were lined with shelves crammed with old musty books, and on the floor there were 3 rugs with dark, swirly patterns of wild beasts and forests, and 2 chairs were covered with similar ghastly designs, and a sofa was draped in bearskin. On the wall behind the couch were 2 thumpingly grim African masks, and the mouths on the mask were wide open, as if they were in the midst of a scream. Everywhere you looked, there was something startling. A stuffed squirrel, a cat with made out of a dragon, in the shape of a dragon, a wooden cow with a spear piercing its side. What in the world? "Goodness," Phoebe said, "what a lot of unusual things." She knelt down to examine a spot on the floor. "What's the matter?" Miss Partridge said. Phoebe jumped up. Nothing whatsoever." "Did I drop something on the floor?" Mrs. Partridge asked. "Nope, nothing whatsoever on the floor," Phoebe said. Leaning against the back of the sofa was an enormous sword. Phoebe examined the blade. "Careful now, don't cut yourself," Miss Partridge said. She knows everything that's going on and she's blind. Phoebe stepped back. Even I found this unsettling, that Miss Partridge could see what Phoebe was doing, even though she couldn't actually see her. Miss Partridge said, "Isn't it a grandiful room? Grandiful. And a little peculiable, too, I suppose." Miss Partridge is making up words. "Phoebe and I have to be going," and went back towards the door. "Oh, by the way," Miss Partridge said as we reached the doorway, "what was it that you wanted?" Phoebe looked at me, and I looked at Phoebe. "We were just passing by," I said, "and we thought we'd just see how you were doing." "Oh, that's nice," Miss Partridge said, patting her knees. "Oh, Phoebe, I think I met your brother." Phoebe said, "I don't have a brother." "Oh," Miss Partridge tapped her head. "Well, I guess this old noggin isn't as sharp as they used to be." As we left, she said, "Goodness, you girls stay up late." Outside, Phoebe said, "I'll make a list of items which the police will want to investigate further. The sword, the suspicious spot on the floor, and the several hair strands which I picked up." "Phoebe, you know when you said that your mother would never leave without an explanation? Well, she might. A person, a mother, might just do that." Phoebe said, "My mother wouldn't. My mother loves me." "But she might love you and still not have been able to explain." I was thinking about the letter my mother had left me. Maybe it was just too painful for her to explain, or maybe it would seem too permanent. "I don't know what in the world you're talking about." "Well, she might not come back, Phoebe." "Shut up, Sal." "Well, she might not. I just think you should be prepared." "She is too coming back, and I don't know what you're talking about. You're just being horrid." And Phoebe ran into the house. When I got home, I had crept up to my room, and I remembered how Phoebe had shown me some things in her room that reminded her of her mother. A handsome birthday card, a photograph of Phoebe and her mother, a bar of lavender soap. And when Phoebe pulled a blouse out of the closet, she said that she could see her mother standing at the ironing board, smoothing the blouse with her hand. The wall opposite to Phoebe's bed was painted violet, and she said, "My mother painted it last summer while I painted the trim at the bottom." And I knew exactly what Phoebe was doing and exactly why. I had done the same things when my mother left. My father was right. My mother did haunt our house and buy banks. and the fields and the barn. She was everywhere. You couldn't look at one single thing without being reminded of her. When we moved to Euclid, one of the first things I did was to unpack the gifts that my mother had given me. On the wall, I tacked the poster of the red hen, which my mother had given me for my 5th birthday, and the drawing of the barn she had given me on my last birthday. And on my desk were pictures of her and cards from her. And on the bookshelf, there was wooden animals and books that were presents from her. Sometimes I would walk around the room and look at each one of these things and try to remember exactly the day that she had given them to me. And I tried to picture what the weather was like and what room we were in and what she was wearing and what precisely she had said. This was not a game. It was a necessary, crucial thing to do. If I did not have those things and remember those occasions, then she might disappear forever. She might never have been. In my bureau were 3 things of hers that I had taken from her closet after she left. A red fringed shawl, a blue sweater, and a yellow flowered cotton dress that was always my favorite. These things had her smell on them. Once, before she left, my mother said that if you visualize something happening, you can make it happen. For example, if you were about to run a race, you visualize yourself running the race and crossing the finish line first, and presto, when the time comes, it really will happen. The only thing I did not understand was, what if everyone visualized himself winning the race? Still, when she left, this is what I did. I visualized her reaching for the phone, and then I visualized her dialing the phone. I visualized our phone number clicking through the wires, and I visualized the phone ringing, but it did not ring. I visualized her riding the bus back to Bybanks. I visualized her walking up the driveway. I visualized her opening the door. It did not happen. And while I was thinking about all this that night after Phoebe and I crept into Mr. Cadaver's house, I also thought about Ben. I had the sudden urge to run over to the Finneys and ask him where his mother was, but it was too late. The Finneys would be asleep. Instead, I lay there thinking of the poem about the traveler, and I could see the tide rising and falling, and those horrid white hands snatching the traveler. How could it be normal, that traveler dying? And how could such a thing be normal and terrible both at the same time? I stayed awake that whole night. I knew that if I closed my eyes, I would see that tide and the white hands. And I thought about Mr. Winterbottom crying. That was the saddest thing. It was sadder than seeing my own father cry, because my father is the sort of person that you might actually expect to cry if he was like terribly upset. But I had never, ever expected Mr. Winterbottom, stiff Mr. Winterbottom, to cry. It was the first time I realized that he actually cared about Mrs. Winterbottom. As soon as it was daylight, I phoned Phoebe. Phoebe, we've got to find her, I said. That's what I've been telling you, she said. Told you that was an interesting chapter. All right, the next one will be chapter 31, and it's called The Photograph. So, all right. I hope you enjoyed it, and I am so anxious to find out what's going to happen. How about you? All right, I'll see you later. Bye.